All right. So making the most of your summer experience. So we know that securing a summer experience can be long and can be a little bit daunting in some cases. Getting your resume, cover letter, applications, and interviews is a long process. But once you have it secured, one of the best things about it is that you can really look at it of how this experience is going to help you professionally. And so you want to think about that and start prepping before you actually get in that summer experience. So it's not just, going through the motions once you're getting there. If you take the time ahead of it to really think about like what you want out of this summer experience, it's going to really lay the foundation for future opportunities. So like one leads to the other. And so today we're going to go over many topics, but our main topics that we're going to really focus on are setting SMART goals. And you're the person who's going to lead this effort for your summer goals. Career competency areas that employers look for that you want to focus on and develop over this experience. The importance of feedback, what it is, how you receive it, and what you're going to do with it during this experience. A goal in finding a mentor through this experience, and then some common sense tips in succeeding day to day in this experience. All right, so we're going to dive into the SMART goals. You've probably been part of this before, looking at maybe in your classrooms about writing the goals, but SMART goals, are not really different than any other goals that you have, but they're just a little bit more defined. So we're looking at what the acronym stands for here, and making sure that, by the end of the summer, you're going to achieve what you hope to do, by making sure that they are specific and measurable, achievable, and time-bound and results focused. You're really going to make the most out of this summer experience. So have you guys wrote any SMART goals in your classes before? Any raise of hands I can see, or thumbs up? Does that look for you guys? Okay. I don't really see many, so maybe you're just quiet this afternoon or we haven't done it before. But the first, specific is like really all the W's sometimes that we talk about. So it explains the what, how, and why. So what goal are you kind of looking at? And then, you want it to be specific and think about what do you want to accomplish. So think of this kind of as the mission statement for your goal. So like that kind of is the overarching part of it. The measurable aspect. So you can't just choose anything. You want to be able to measure whether this goal can happen. So can it be accomplished? So what metrics are you using to determine if you meet the goal? If the goal is tangible, thinking about what ways to measure the progress of it, and thinking about what if it takes a few months to accomplish. In a summer experience, that's okay, you have that time, but making sure you kind of think those things through is how you're actually going to accomplish it. So achievable. So I think most of the time we think all of our goals are achievable, but you want the goal to be challenging, but you still want to make sure that you can meet it within the time standards and circumstances you are going to be in over the summer. So it really helps you think about what is attainable in the environment you're going to be in. Thinking about a goal in this is meant to challenge you and give you motivation and not discouragement from reaching it. So thinking about what tools and skills you're going to need to make it achievable. And if you don't possess those skills currently, like what are you going to do so you can take it in and then attain that goal. And then results focus. That really looks at the outcome. So thinking about, you have to have it in kind of an angle, all of it. So you want it to be relevant to outcomes and not just activities. So a goal isn't just doing X number of activities in the summer. Really think about that outcome of what you're looking for. Again, something that's realistic and available within your resources, knowledge, and time frame. And time bound. So all of your goals are going to be time bound. So yours are going to be really specific to the summer. So like depending on the length of your experience, you might have 12 weeks or 8 weeks. So that is something that is kind of preset for the summer experience, but at other times in your life, it might be more variable depending on how you want to set that time for your SMART goal. All right, so we're gonna look at 2 examples here. So this is a position from Handshake. And initially, it's a camp counselor with kind of just main bullets of its activities of responsibilities. And just looking at, if you go through the SMART acronym, you can look at this individual did the SMART goal as to hold an in-person program for campers around cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is a problem, especially amongst adolescent girls. The goal is to help campers learn about cyberbullying and is to how to address it. So that is specific. So gave detailed exactly of what this goal is. You can see like that is taking from the description here. And all the description said was delivering programs. So that wasn't given in the job description that this is the particular program that they were gonna have to create or program on. It is working from that job description and creating something that works with your own interests, your own skill sets, and expanding out on it. Achievable, yes, that's achievable. We can look at that and write along the ways, as long as they have the knowledge and time to, if they need to research the topic, it can be achievable. Measurable, thinking about how do you measure it. In this case, the goal is to measure before and after with a program survey, asking the campers of knowledge on this topic. So that is a common way to measure outcome, especially if you're working with a population to gain post knowledge. So you can see that what they walked in knowing about the topic, and then after you did it, you can gain their feedback of what else they learned from it. And then the results, that was explained right there about the growth of the topic area. And then the time bound, that is going to be within their program. The second option right here, so we're looking at the same type of position right here. So the position is not changing, but the SMART goal is. So you can see here is a different type of SMART goal for the same type of position. But this one is less about that programmatic aspect of it and more about how they're going to kind of help with their own professional development. So you can see here, there's a specific part of it. They were really clear, a minimum of 4 to 5. So they gave a clear range of how many coworkers they were going to speak to and do informational meetings on. And then what the topic was to build my knowledge of career development in this field. So that is achievable. How are you going to measure it? So the kind of something is your growth here, but they're going to keep track of the meetings and topics discussed. Okay. And then the results focus. We'll review resources, strategies, other topics, and then at the end of the internship to demonstrate knowledge gained. That's okay. And then again, time bound, because of this is within the same summer experience, we know it's going to be by the conclusion of their internship. So 2 different ways to write a SMART goal, but it really gives you the option of when you're looking at your summer experience, where are the areas you are going to grow on. I know I work on the summer grant program for our office, and we do ask you to write learning goals within the application itself. So we're hoping to help, not only like something that you can do on your own, but something when you're doing applications and such, SMART goals are really a common aspect of it. All right, so now we're gonna look at the career competencies. So this is really just a fancier way to say, do you have what it takes to transition from college to the workplace after graduation? So these skill areas are what employers typically say are important to them. This is developed by NACE, which is the National Association of College and Employers. There's a task force of career professionals and employers, HR, staffing, who really look at those competencies and career readiness and what is associated with it. So these are some of these are, I should say, the top 8 that they list and what they feel like as students, you should be able to have these, and this is what employers are looking for. Just making sure I'm not missing any ones. So think about, these are really things that you can use in your SMART goals, but also like think about what your position over the summer, how are you meeting these? How are you developing some of these skill sets? I think, you know, part of it is like going in with the reflection of knowing like maybe at Davidson, you have a lot of teamwork and collaboration. You know, you've had a lot of experience in that, but maybe you haven't had a lot with digital technology or even thinking about oral communication. But you can work with maybe your summer supervisor to like create these opportunities that you feel you want to develop or refine. So this is the opportunity to really kind of look at these key skill set areas and like look at yourself, like what are the areas I'm doing really great at and I'm having opportunities to develop, but what are the areas this summer I really want to focus on, maybe just a couple of them to really develop that out. This is the area, this is the summer, no matter what class year you are at Davidson, we're going to continue to grow. And this is one of the areas you really want to be able to emphasize. So especially knowing that, you know, what if your career interests are not necessarily linear to your degree at Davidson? This is what's going to help you make those transitions to different industries. I can give you my personal example that, you know, we'll tell you as a career office that you're going to probably change positions 12 different times in your career. And you're probably going to change a whole different industry. So right now you might be thinking, I'm going to go into technology, or maybe I'm going into education, but there's a strong chance by the time that you're my age or later in your career, you're going to be doing something completely different that you might have not even considered yet. But what's great is that you're going to be developing these skill sets along the way to put you in the position that you can transfer industries and can transfer and move into transition into different job functions. So when I went from working in nonprofits for several years and transitioned to higher ed, I was able to really focus on the skill set that I had developed previously that transferred into this environment using the same skills, but it was a different setting. And I had to be able to articulate that in my interview process, that even though it was a different setting, a skill sets that I needed, I had already established. All right, so another strong piece of having a great summer experience is receiving feedback. Feedback is really important on a number of different levels. One of the main things that you might have to consider is that not all of your summer experiences is going to have this built in to your experience. You know, you might not have a formal evaluation midway through your summer experience or at the end. So you really want to consider this when you start your experience. Is that something that is already kind of outlined for you, or is it something that you're going to have to initiate on your own? And I would highly encourage you that if your supervisor hasn't spoken about this when you start your summer experience, that you take that initiative and let them know that receiving feedback is really important to you, and kind of work that through how you're gonna do it. So you can receive feedback in a couple, many different ways, I should say. You've received feedback, from professors. Think about it on the comments that they write, or just the verbal dialogue that you guys have back and forth. Thinking about you guys receive feedback from us when you come into the office and we tell you and we review your resume, like we write comments on it or tell you, all of that's like typical feedback. Helps you get from A to B. But by having you like initiating that formal structure over the summer is really going to allow you to reflect after the experience. Again, like what can you continue to do in the fall to strengthen those areas to really make you a competitive candidate for that position that you're seeking afterwards. And realize too that feedback's not always positive. We like to consider it as constructive feedback is a nice way of receiving negative feedback, but that there is strength in negative feedback and constructive criticism. That's where you're going to learn the most. Take that back. When someone is telling you you're doing an excellent job, that's fantastic, but then directly ask them, what are the areas can I improve on? Where is an area that you can see I could have done something differently? Push them, to receive that critical feedback so you as a professional can continue to grow. And this is where, again, this is where SMART goals can be helpful, like thinking about areas that you might consider yourself, an area that is a weakness of yours, or you may just lack that experience. By setting those goals is an area that you can really focus on and develop it. And then work with that supervisor or the individual you're working with over the summer so you can really develop that. But having that open ability to hear some criticism from it is the only way we're going to grow. And it's something that you want to really consider. All right, mentorship. So this is something that, is not always something formal within your program. Sometimes we get busy in the day-to-day life of our internship and experiences. And, it's going to take a little bit longer to really focus on what else you can do in this internship. So one of the most important things you can do is find your people. Look at the ways that you can grow within this organization, company, and experience. And so we really encourage you to have informational interviews while you're there. So depending on the size of where you're interning over the summer, think about talking with your supervisor and having a plan, or maybe them being a part of it, that you're being exposed to other individuals within the company or organization. So setting up a time where you can go have lunch or a coffee or a Zoom call if it's a remote situation still, and meeting those other people within the departments so you can learn more. When we fund opportunities, one of the things I hear the most is, coming back and be like, I love the company itself, but I didn't like the role, or vice versa. So, taking this opportunity to look beyond what you're just doing in your particular role this summer could be really helpful by exposing yourself to other individuals within the company. So doing informational interviews, so thinking about that SMART goal example that we talked about already, setting a goal for yourself. Is it for individuals you're going to have conversations with in different departments over the summer? By doing that, you really get exposed maybe to other areas of a company that you haven't prior considered. You might be working closely, let's say in a development office, but maybe it's something in marketing that you want to learn, or in within a communication role, or operations. So I really do encourage you to make those connections, and you're in a great position for people to say yes to you. They want to help the intern get exposure and have a really great summer. So use that to your advantage and really reach out to those who have interesting roles or just roles in different departments. Another advantage by doing this is you're going to build your network. I feel like you probably hear us talk a lot about your network and how important it is, but this position over the summer is really you have the ability, to let it extend onward. So once you have one contact, by having some of these conversations, you're going to get exposed to their individual networks. These individuals have worked in prior fields and careers and other companies. So really taking the time to speak with them can really help you land maybe, this upcoming 22 summer internship, or maybe helping you make that connection with a company who's hiring, and that can help with your post-grad search, and just because like they're outside your department, it doesn't mean that your boss or your supervisor actually have relationships with these individuals either. So you can't just rely on one person within the organization and feel like that's good enough. I've built one relationship at, ABC company and I'm set. But if you actually build 4 or 5 relationships within the company, think about all their past education and prior experiences. You just like compounded that by a huge number. And so, by looking at this can really be an opportunity for you to grow, but also maintain those relationships so much longer. All right, so little performance tips. So I think initially we're going to say, these are common sense, Lindsay. I know all of this. But it's really important to make sure you prepare for your internship and not go into it, necessarily as we would a day in life at Davidson. So one of the main things to consider is the communication aspect. Thinking about communication is key with whatever we do. So written, verbal, nonverbal, all really important things that you need to consider when you're at your summer experience. Email is really important. So, that is probably more email you're going to use probably over the summer than maybe you're used to. Maybe you've seen it increase because of the pandemic, depending on your classes. But you really want to make sure that you're still treating it in a formal sense. So, having complete sentences, addressing the individuals by full name, not using more text language or abbreviation. So making sure that you have punctuation, all of this matters. So kind of thinking through of this and make sure that you're checking it on a regular basis. I know when I communicate, making sure that even if you're on projects and assignments that, in the morning you're checking it, and maybe before the end of your day, you're checking it if it's not throughout the day. So that is one thing that's really important. All right, being on time. You want to manage your schedule to avoid any conflicts. So I think what is really important is that you're being clear with your supervisor on the time that your day starts, what time of your day ends, and that you're showing up. It's not like necessarily a class or maybe even a prior part-time job. This really lays the foundation of what you're looking at as a professional, and what would this person recommend. And so even if other people are arriving late, that is probably their full-time job. They might have accommodations that you are not aware of. So stick to the schedule that you and your supervisor made and decided together until otherwise. So learning names, that's super important in any environment. So you want to be able to address your supervisor and your coworkers. So learn what they like to go by. It might be a little bit easier now with Zoom if it's on their right next to their name, their face on there. But it's really, again, it's a nice effort that you can go out and greet somebody. It's a nice effort to be able to, you're the new person. So it's a lot to take in. Don't get me wrong. They only have to learn maybe a couple or one intern's name. You have to learn a whole team. But really kind of spend those first few days. If it's studying up on the website, if you're lucky enough that they have pictures and faces, or you kind of doing a walk around the office if it's in person and kind of looking at offices with names or cubicles with their names, so you can kind of get adjusted. And and taking the time maybe if you are in person, to say hello, introduce yourself if you haven't met those team members, if they weren't on a call or a Zoom call. I think it's always great when someone starts in our department is that they take a time to meet with every team member. So if that isn't something that your supervisor sets up for you, I would really encourage you to take that initiative on your own, like block 15 minutes on all your team members' calendars to introduce yourself, learn about something that you guys might have in common, like take that time. And again, it kind of goes back to that mentorship and building relationships, and just to kind of you showing that initiative yourself will go a long way. So looking at the culture of the organization, every team operates differently. So you can't compare what your previous summer experience was or your previous position on campus job. You want to take the cues from those team members. So kind of that first week or two is really you just like taking in all that information, but also you observing and willing to do that. Don't just sit down your desk right away and with your head down, getting right to those tasks. Make sure that you're kind of looking at how people go about it. Is it common that the team has a huddle in the morning? Is it common, like how they respond, if they use like Slack. So the CCD team uses Slack, as a member of it, make sure that you kind of are chiming in and being a true team member. Another big one, communicating with your supervisor. So that I can't stress enough. We've talked about it already. But what you're going to get out of this summer experience is also like clearly like being clear with your boss, like having those learning goals, having those expectations. Every organization treats the structure of their internship program differently. And so if you're unsure about something, like write it down. If you're in a staff meeting and you don't know what they're talking about, go back, ask that question to your supervisor, take the time to do some research. If there's a task that you're not sure about, it's always, reading the culture of it, but most of the time it's really the best is go get clarification and then move ahead. Anybody who's having these organizations, they really want you to have a great summer experience, but part of it is you and them having clear communication in what you're doing. So if something's not working, or if there's a project that you're just not fully understanding, take that time to add the clarification, because in the long run, by doing it now, it's going to save everyone a lot of time at the end. And that kind of goes right into thinking ahead, predicting the problems. So it goes back to part of those competencies that we talked about that NACE has identified, but then also making sure that you kind of are looking a couple steps ahead of the time. Like if you're completing this project on Thursday, what's on the table for you next? Are you making sure that there's enough projects to keep you busy? Or is there something like you're working on and you're realizing the timeline is off, that you can't get a deliverable when you need to? So goes back to communicating your boss. If you're missing something from a different department or something's taking longer than anticipated, by looking through and predicting these problems, it's going to be better than turning it in late or not hitting that deadline before you've had that conversation. Be helpful. I think everyone who's part of a new team, you want to be helpful. You want to get your tasks done before seeking other responsibilities, but it also is a great opportunity by being helpful, if you have the capacity to do so, is to learn the other areas of the company and organization. So, if it's one of those organizations that, I've worked here and my previous position, sometimes it's all hands on deck kind of an event that you can take place. And sometimes they're asking for volunteers. So structure what you're doing during your week, that if you want to be helpful to another department or another colleague, that you're getting your first task done, or communicating with your supervisor, like, I really want to take part in marketing's event, is it okay if I get this done and then help them for a day and then come back to this assignment? Or making sure that you get that work done beforehand. So I think, you may not always be as busy as you want to be. Sometimes that's the case. And if that is, look at other ways that you can be helpful. So that kind of takes note of what you've studied and what you've heard in staff meetings. Like, where is the areas that you can be helpful before they even ask you? If you showing that initiative, that's where they're going to look at the interns and maybe decide, absolutely, like, it could be a recommendation, could be easily, but more so, is it something that they're going to ask you to stay on? Or is it another invite for another summer internship? Or, really consider you for that full-time position? All of these little things along the way, those add up when they're kind of only have one open role, but maybe they have 5 interns over the summer. All of those kind of things will come into play when they're deciding who gets the job offer or who gets the next summer's higher position as an intern. So one of the last things I'm gonna just say, don't engage in your office gossip. Every office has some, but you really want to showcase that professional side of you. You want to kind of remain neutral and stick with your task and be a good team member. You're there for a short period of time. And so it'd be better for you to kind of not hop on in that and just showcase your professional side and focus on the work and the relationships, and not necessarily that maybe gossip that you hear about, and kind of just behavioral wise, behave as you should, not as you see. Sometimes when those individuals who have been there for a while or have different types of relationships with one another, it might be easy to kind of hop on to that banter and stuff. But at the same time, you probably haven't been there long enough to have that relationship. And so really take that into perspective of, this is kind of an ongoing interview for you. Like, it is time limited. You're probably there no more than 12 weeks. And so really kind of remember that every interaction you have can really help put you in good position for the future. And you don't want to do something that, might not be less than a highlight. So basic tips, but hopefully that are helpful for you as you kind of think in overall about your summer. So we went over that fairly quickly. So I'm going to open it up before I close to any questions that you guys have. Okay. It's very quiet. That's okay. All I can encourage you guys is to really go in there, like we said, with enthusiasm and do your best and kind of prepare in advance of really thinking through, like, what do you hope to accomplish? Not just what was in that job description, So come through it of like, how are you personally going to grow from this experience and put you in the position to help meet those career goals that you have after Davidson? So if it's looking at a junior year summer internship after this initial one, if it's you looking at a full-time position after you graduate, or if it's going to help set you up if you're looking to apply to graduate school or a fellowship, all of these are things that you want to consider as you kind of prepare for this summer experience. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any more questions, feel free to come by. You can drop in on our virtual Zoom link Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5, or you can schedule an appointment with one of the advisors to kind of talk further about your individual situation. So have a great afternoon, and we'll talk soon. Bye.